Well, great. Hey, welcome everybody. Thanks so much. The Missions Network, Orange County Missions Network, we call it the network. We've been putting on a few of these sessions just to help equip more citywide movements. And it came up in that discussion that now that we're all shifting online, we just want to make sure people know the tools available, specifically Zoom and a few others. And so this is an impromptu special session. And so we brought in some resident experts that we've got, Linda Lee and Max McGee, and it's really fun because that rhymes. But we'll hand over the floor to them in just a second. But I just wanted to say a special welcome to all the guests. I know we've got some people from different cities, different churches. And thank you so much for the work that you're doing to continue to love people and be the church, especially in these tough times. And just wanted to open us up in prayer, and then we will pass this on over. Okay, sound all right? I'll take that as a yes. Some thumbs up there. All right, so let's pray. God, we breathe and say thank you. Thank you for a new day. Thank you for the fact that we are new creations in Jesus. God, would you give us insight and direction and even creativity in how to use tools? So thank you for each person that you've brought into this call. Thank you for the ways that they are invested in your kingdom. God, would you unite us in the ways that we can be a service and a help and an empowerment to each other and to your church, so that your love can be felt and experienced by those that we encounter. And so we give you this time, and we pray that you would give direction to those that are helping to facilitate this and put it on. And we just love you. We love you, God. It's in the strong name of Jesus we pray, and we say amen. So I'm going to pass this over to our experts.
Thank you, Andrew. Well, I really appreciate Andrew, what he's doing with the network, and what I am on the 401 team, which is the mission team at Lake Forest. And we just launched career coaching online. So thank you, Andrew, for saying I'm an expert. I think I'm a learner. I've just learned, and just happy to share learnings with you and things that didn't work. So we learned from doing. So that's what we're going to share. And Max is also going to jump in and participate with just sharing what he's been doing with the Vulnerable Children Initiative. He's the leader for our Vulnerable Children Initiative, and he has been caring for families with such a heart and using Zoom as an online meeting platform as well. So we are going to just go over some best practices that we've learned, as well as just some helpful tips. And so we're going to start off with, on your screen right now, what you see is a poll. So this is one of the features that can be used if you have a training or some type of event or gathering and you want to connect and see, just you can do a fun poll, you can do, some serious questions, just to really get to know your the participants better. And so we just did an example of what can be used, and I'm going to right now. Oh, it looks like Andrew just shared the results. So you open it up with a poll, you have your participants answer it, and then you can share the results, which Andrew just did. All right, so that's just one of the features that can be used for Zoom. And I'm going to ask right now, Andrew, can you make, we have the availability for the account that we have 10 hosts, and these hosts have those superpowers. So I'm going to ask Andrew right now as the host. He's going to go ahead and make some of you co-hosts so that you can see, you're going to be able to see what we see as a co-host. That way it'll help you kind of understand some of the features. So I'm going to ask Andrew to go ahead and just hover over their names, hover over some people's names, and we can have about 7 more people become co-hosts. Okay, so Andrew's going to go ahead and work on that. And so let's start right now by talking about some best practices for a smooth meeting. And how we prepare ahead of time is going to be really, really helpful. For example, when you have a free account, you have 40 minutes free, and you have you can set as many meetings as you want. But if you go ahead and get a paid account, that paid account allows for unlimited, you can hold an all-day event using a paid account. And there's paid accounts for 100 people, there's paid accounts for 300 participants, and then upwards. So later on, we'll share with you a link where you can actually first download the Zoom onto your computer, and then you can actually look at some different plans that meet your needs for whatever ministry and area that you want to use Zoom for. Now, next is, in preparation, it's really important to do this prior, because what we learned is if the settings are not set up for your meeting how you want them, but if you try to do it during the meeting, the settings won't actually be enabled until you actually get out. So let me give you an example. If you want to do a meeting with multiple rooms, and Zoom calls them breakout rooms. And if you want to do a meeting with multiple rooms, breakout rooms, you have to first go into settings and enable those before you even actually launch the meeting. So you go in first, you have an idea of what you want your meeting to be like, the features that you want to use, and you're going to either enable or disable certain ones prior to your meeting, prior to even setting up your meeting. Okay, so settings is really key to make sure you have those features ready. Now, you can also do we recommend doing a pre-registration. So you can set up your event, however you publish your event on your communication channel. And after people register, we recommend then allowing them to get the Zoom link. And just like you registered for this particular training, and then afterwards, you got an email with the Zoom link. And this is because we found out that we have some people that come in, they want to be disruptive sometimes, and they somehow try to take over the meeting with inappropriate content. So we've had that happen several times across our campuses. So we want to try to prevent that as much as possible and not publish that Zoom meeting link, publicly. But, if they register, that's when we send the meeting link. And also, we're going to provide some links for tutorials. And there's quite a few tutorials that Zoom has. So I'm just going to give you some links after the meeting. Andrew will send out a document where you're going to be able to just watch ones that will help get you started. So we'll share those video tutorials with you after the meeting. And then finally, just a side note, participants, they don't need to download the actual application onto their computer to just join a meeting. But if, as a person who is hosting a meeting or scheduling a meeting, you definitely do want to be able to download the Zoom client for meetings so that you have the full functionality for your system. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so right now we just want to go over the possibilities. In other words, for your particular ministry area, what type of ministries can actually use Zoom? So for us, I mentioned earlier, we have brought our career coaching online. And this is because we just really want to be able to support those who are going through economic difficulties, losing their job. And so one of the first things that we did is we brought our career coaching ministry online, and it's courses like LinkedIn and interviewing and mock interviewing and resume writing. So that's one ministry area that we've brought online. Other things that we've done are small groups to get people to stay connected, children's ministry, student ministries. We have our junior high and high school students meeting online. And we're thinking about launching our ESL classes online. And, there's even possibilities of different seminars and conferences and of course trainings. And also want to mention prayer too, because there's actually a great way to do prayer together online, as well as break out into different rooms to do prayer. And so now I want to go ahead and kick it over to Max, who's going to share with you which settings do you want to enable or disable as you consider what type of meeting you're going to have. And he's going to go over some of these key settings and to know what you can have for your meeting and what you want to disable for to protect your meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and mute myself now, and so Max can jump.
All right, thank you so much, Linda. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you guys can see what I'm talking about. And when you do share your screen, there's a couple settings that you have when you go to do it that specifically deal with doing video clips and what have you. So it's a couple little buttons you need to click when you do that. So right now we're just going to talk about, these are kind of like our agenda for today's meeting. And so some of the settings you're going to want to have is you want to have your participants muted upon entry. And one of the neat things about having this feature is when people start coming in, they're not going to disrupt something that's already happening. And you can also set your meetings to not allow them to mute themselves throughout the flow of the meeting. So in the, unfortunately, I can't share all the Zoom functionality that's happening currently, but when you have set the mute the participant on entry, you just know they're going to kind of come in silently, and then later we can show you with the links that Linda talked about, the video tutorials on how to change those settings live during the meeting. So basically what that looks like is during meetings that have more than 6 people in it, it's really important that most people are muted. Otherwise there'll be so much background chatter. It's really disruptive during presentations or talking. You can also set the chat settings to allow people only to chat publicly, or you can have it so they can private user to user, which I think is fine, but I also lead a life group. And so I've disabled the ability for the students to do private chatting amongst themselves, because they'll end up, turning into a text message fiasco, and it just gets, really disruptive to that. So, so that's a little bit about the chat. File transfer. I haven't really used this yet. I haven't really seen the full need of using that yet, but we're going to go ahead and try that today, later and right now. So what I can do is I'm going to download this little Word doc, if you will, as a PDF. And then I'm going to try to upload that into our chat, and so you guys can see how that works. So I'm going to stop my share for a second. And there it is. Okay, so the document you saw me sharing with you now is in the chat window. If you look in there, you can see a little PDF. And now if you wanted to, you can click on that and follow along. The biggest disadvantage that I think Zoom has, and I don't know that any other platform has an advantage that would accommodate this, but if you've used some of those learning platforms out there, like, what is it? Gosh, I can't think of the name of it. Somethingify. I keep thinking Shopify, but I know it's not that. But anyway, there's different learning platforms out there like Skillshare and others, where you can watch a video up top and you can respond with some comprehension quiz type questions below. And so that's been one of the challenges that I've come across, and I don't think I have a solution to that. But you can share PDFs with your Zoom followers, if you will, or the people that are part of your Zoom meeting, and they can follow along in that way. That way if for some reason they didn't get it emailed ahead of time or what have you, you can still share it that way. Does that make sense? So there's a little bit about the ability to share files. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the document. So you can have co-hosts in the meeting. I had the impression that you could only have one co-host, and I was completely wrong. So if you had a paid account, you can have more than one co-host, and that goes up pretty, should fulfill all your needs. And what that does is if you do have certain settings that limit the participation of some of the users, if you have some co-hosts, they can monitor the chat, they can turn people's mics on and off for you. Because if you have a meeting that has more than 9, or so people, it's hard to find people's mics for them if you don't have it set so you can turn them on and off. But last night I had a meeting with, I think we had close to 30 people-ish. And we just made it so that they can turn their mics on and off. And I think most of the time, if you're working with adults, you're not going to have too much trouble with mics. I will say that when I'm working with students, I do have to control all the mute functions. Otherwise, it gets out of control. So that's a little something there. Some of you that are working with some homeless populations, sometimes you might have some immature people in your meeting, so that might be an issue for you. I know I've had some hecklers in different venues when it comes to that population that you have to be careful about. The polling, as you saw, we gave you a little example about how the polling works. And now you can see how the screen sharing works, and you can set it to where only the host can share their screen, so that way you don't have to worry about somebody doing inappropriate shares. That's what I suggest. I haven't used the whiteboard. To me, it just doesn't sound that great, but I think for those of you that love whiteboarding, it might be a great little tool. But you can also annotate anything that you're sharing on the screen as well. So I had to turn that off as well because my students were scribbling on the Bible while I was trying to read it to them. And that was very distracting. But there is a way that you can set so that you can annotate different things as you're presenting. But I don't think we have that turned on for this meeting. And then Linda covered the breakout rooms. We've done that with a couple of our meetings, and that was really successful in some of those meetings. In other meetings, it killed the whole meeting. So some people, when they hear they're about to go into a breakout room with a bunch of strange people, they just logged off and ran for the hills. With other meetings where it was a more, people that well, I've seen that you don't see that as much. So if you have people, this is their first time checking in with a Zoom meeting or training, I probably don't recommend breakout rooms unless you have a very specific thing. So I'm going to let Linda talk a little more about that later, because with the career coaching, they had some very specific reasons why they did the breakout rooms. And I think those specific reasons give people incentives to stick around to be put into their breakout room. If that makes sense. But we're like you've heard, we've been serving some foster parents and adoptive parents and what have you. And so far, the only time that's worked is when we've done it with our support groups where everybody already knows each other and they're not afraid to be placed into a room, for smaller dialogue. So that's a little bit about the breakout room, is that it sounded really great, but when I had a meeting with a lot of people that didn't know each other, as soon as I announced we're all going into breakout rooms, everybody disappeared. And so I went down from like 50 people to about 8 people in about 30 seconds. So that's something to know about. Waiting rooms are really great for starting the meeting on time, because people will show up a little bit early. And so once the meeting goes live, I typically would disable the waiting room. So that's something you can do, live as you're running things. And so you can also participate from within a browser. You don't have to have the Zoom app, but I find that it works really well to have it, because it's, I think, a lot more stable. And once again, another neat thing is you can stream content from YouTube, Facebook. Well, this is talking about streaming your meeting to Facebook and YouTube, and vice versa. So same way I'm sharing this document with you, you can share videos and other content in the meeting, which has been very effective in training. So with that, I was going to see if Linda wanted to talk a little bit more about those specific break rooms, because that is a topic that we just covered in that first piece. And I think she can really speak better to that than I did, because she had such a great experience.
All right, thank you, Max. We right now you can see that Andrew, he made several of you co-hosts, so now you have some superpowers. And for this particular account, which is the business account, there are up to 9 co-hosts and 1 main host. Okay, so if you go ahead and open up your participants window, and next to your name, you can see who right now has been made a co-host and who is a participant. So that when we go over some of these controls, you're going to be seeing the same controls is what I see as a co-host. And the others of you, you can just listen in and I'll try to describe it as the best I can, okay? So we're going to, right now, we're gonna look at some of the meeting controls. So for Zoom, you have your navigation bar at the bottom of your screen. And if you hover, if your navigation bar is not showing, you can just take your mouse and hover at the bottom and then your navigation bar will show up. And what Max talked about for some of the settings is mute is really important for setting, if you want to have everyone come in muted so that there's not so much, talking back and forth and confusion at the beginning of a meeting. You can go in and set your settings that way. But as a host or co-host, you can also mute all. So those of you who are co-host, if you've clicked on the participant, you've opened up the participant window, you can see these settings such as invite, mute all, unmute all, and then there's also a more button. So that's when, if you click on that, you can mute everybody, and then the main host would be able to speak. All right, and another thing that may happen in a meeting, which happened to me recently, is somehow my audio was turned way down, even though the prior meeting, my audio was fine. So what I needed to do during the meeting was I went and selected the microphone, that little up arrow, that little caret, and where it says audio settings, and I want you to go ahead and do that, okay? So go ahead and go to that microphone, click on that little up the caret, click on audio settings, and if you need to adjust, increase or decrease. But I found when I went in there, the time where I wasn't being heard well, I needed to increase my speaker. So that's something that you should do prior to your meeting as well. And now going across this navigation bar, we have the stop video. And I want you to test your buttons, okay? So I want you to go ahead and click on stop video. And when you do that, you can see my name pops up, right? So go ahead and click on, so you can stop your video just to see, play around with the buttons and see how it works. Okay, so I can see several of you already, went on stop video. And then you can just click it on back and you can come back to the meeting. So just for whatever reason you want to stop your video, there's always that option. Now for the next area, and some of your navigation bars will look just a little bit different. Now for security, this is one thing that you may want to or may not want to do, but it depends on your meeting. Now, for career coaching, like Max mentioned, when we go into our breakout rooms, because we're hosting 6 different classes all at the same time, there's a certain time when the host is going to lock the meeting so that nobody else can actually join. Because, that's helpful because, first of all, we don't want people to really miss a lot of the content. So as soon as we move people into breakout rooms, in about 10-15 minutes, the host will go in and lock the meeting. So some of you who are co-hosts, you should be able to click on your security button and you can see the feature that says lock meeting. So all you simply do is select that, and therefore no one else can actually join the meeting at that point. So you can decide when that would be, a best time for that would be, or if you want to actually use that feature. Now, just going down a little bit further, there is some other features like share screen, which Max just showed you. He can share the content of his screen, whether it be a website or a PowerPoint presentation, or maybe a Word document. You can share, different types of documents that you have. And the best thing to do that you would pull it up on your screen first. Just kind of have it open in the background. That way, when it's your turn to share, or if you're the presenter, all that's going to be set and ready for you to just select and share. Now, going down the little menu, there's also something that says remove participants. Now, Max earlier had said maybe there's sometimes he found it someone who was disruptive or just, interrupting the meeting. You can actually remove a participant. And so you would select that feature. Again, this is under the security button that the host and co-host can see in their navigation bar. And you're going to select that particular person to remove them. And when you do that, it'll ask you, do you want to remove this participant? You go ahead and click yes, if that's the correct person that you want to remove. And they wouldn't be able to get back in, but we did find that there is a workaround to that. One participant was somehow removed, but they actually were able to get back in using a different device. They used their iPad instead. So we found that out by accident because we were just testing things out. So just keep in mind that if they happen to get on in a different device, to watch out for that as well. So it's not perfect, but that sometimes is just something to keep an eye out on. Now, you have your participants button. You can see who's in the meeting by simply clicking on that. You can take a look at who is in your meeting. And what's nice is recently they updated this, and you can have your participants respond. So if you have a yes or no question, or if you want to get feedback about going slower or faster, you can see the different options here. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to just go ahead and click on some of these, click on yes or click on no. And so you can see what happens next to the person's name. There's a green check mark, like I can see Ernie, you selected yes, Steve did as well. And so you can go ahead and click on those buttons just to get, you can request different responses. It's just a way of interacting with your participants. And if you select the more button, some of you have 3 dots on that, some of you have a more button, you're going to be able to give the presenter a thumbs up or a thumbs down or a hand clap. Hey, good job. So it's kind of neat that they put some of these new buttons in. And if you want to take a break, you can just put that coffee cup there. Or if you need to walk away from your computer, the host can see that you need to walk away for a moment. So it's kind of cool little tools that are made available. And then to just eliminate that symbol, you just click on it again and it'll eliminate that symbol. Okay, so that is the participant window. And how about, let's talk about chat right now. We have the chat button where they could, well, there's different ways to use chat. If you want to talk to only the host, then you can select in the little pull down, you can select the host. Or if you want to talk to everybody, you would of course select everybody in the meeting. And you can also talk privately to one-on-one with somebody in the meeting. Now, this is important to know what type of meeting that you're hosting, because you may not want participants to talk privately to one another. Well, for example, especially if it's maybe like a junior high meeting or a high school meeting, you want to limit the conversations back and forth, then you would just select the appropriate prior to the meeting. But right now, for the purpose of this meeting, you can see if you click on it, you're able to chat with everyone in the meeting. You're able to chat with hosts and co-hosts and of different participants. And along with that chat window, a file can be shared. Now, just keep in mind for this particular option that if you select file share, that means every participant can actually download that file. So if you want to have something that is like a PowerPoint presentation that you want them to have and download on their computer, then that would work that way. But we're trying to be careful about personal information that we share. So we've disabled, for career coaching, we've actually disabled that feature where files cannot be shared. But again, it is an option to be able to share a file. All right, so far, just if you have a question right now, I'm going to open it up for a second. And if you do have a question, I want to just give you a tip on unmuting yourself where you actually don't have to click your microphone. And that is using your space bar. So if you hold down your space bar, you can see the mute will go away and you can release it to mute back. So why don't you go ahead and try it now? Just hit your space bar. You can see your red microphone is no longer red, and then you can release it again. So if anybody has a question right now, you can unmute yourself right now and just go ahead and ask a question and then mute.
I do, Linda. Linda, I'm wondering if there is a way to keep the navigation bar at the bottom there all the time. Mine only comes live when I put my cursor on it, but it goes away almost instantly, so I can't keep it very long.
Alice, this is a great question. And yes, on the settings, you can actually enable it so that your navigation bar is there 100% all the time.
I don't see anything that says settings on my end. I thought when you were talking about settings, that was only for leaders and co-hosts, but I see nothing that says settings.
Yes. Okay, so let me clarify that. When you can create a Zoom account without downloading the actual application onto your computer. So basically you go to zoom.us, and I'm going to actually type a message on there. You go into zoom.us and you create an account. And then when you create an account, you're able to change your settings, your particular, and that, again, that's going to be a free account. But once under your free account, you have set up that you're able to keep your bar there, the navigation tool. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I thought I had done that, so obviously I didn't do something right. So I need to go back in and create my account so that then it will stay.
Okay, yes. If you haven't created an account yet, you're not you wouldn't be able to look at the settings, but yes, you would log in to your free account if you want to use your free account and do that. Or as well as your paid account, same thing. It really depends on which account you've logged on to last, because right now it looks like I have about 4 accounts that I have access to. And sometimes when I forget to log out, I end up with a different setting. So it's just good to know when you get in which account that you're actually in, that you would have those particular settings. That's a really, really good question.
Now, isn't the other way we can ask questions by going to participants and raising our hand, which I did a few minutes ago?
Yes, that's great. Earlier when we were practicing with the participants, there was there's a clap. And now one thing for your navigation bar, you're going to see reactions, and that's we haven't gotten to that yet. But in your as a host, I don't have the reaction button, but the participants do. So on your navigation bar, if you want to raise your hand, you'd click on reaction, and you can do a thumbs up, or you can raise your hand, and you can practice. Like I can see Kathy has raised her hand, and then in order to once you have your question answered, you can unclick it again to remove that. And I know I saw Lyle, he just gave a thumbs up, and Steve did as well. So great reactions. And then again, you can just unclick that, go back to reactions and unclick it to just remove that from the window.
But Linda, the hand raise is actually under participants. It's one of the lists there.
Okay, great. For mine as a host, I don't see that at all. So for sometimes for the options are a little bit different for host. So yes, Alice, if you see that there, then you can take a look at it. Yeah, you can use it there. Yeah, yes. All right, so now going back to the chat.
Linda, I had a question.
Yes.
When you talked about adjusting the microphone and we went to settings, there is a block for microphones that says automatically adjust sounds. Mine was down low, should I unclick that automatic and put it up high?
Okay, so, you know what, it's really great to, yes, be able to test it. So before your meeting, I definitely recommend trying your settings to see which works best. I mean, the volume level rather. So you can do automatic, or you can actually see, mine is actually moved beyond the middle. I've increased it a little bit more just to be a little bit louder. It depends on, some people are soft speakers, right? Some people are, they project more. So it just depends on how your voice is. And I definitely recommend getting on it in your as a team and just talking through and seeing how your audio is working. And we, career coaching, we did several practice runs. We did it, 2 practice runs, and then we did a few meetings together before we even actually are going to launch, officially. So that's going to be really helpful. Thank you for asking that question.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Kathy.
All the navigation bar things that you're talking about, I don't have on my screen. Is that because I'm not a co-host? So you've just explained that to everybody, but I don't how will I figure that out or see that after this is over?
Yes, that's right, Kathy. For your particular, Kathy teaches our mission class, and so she's a presenter. So she's going to be, when she presents, she's definitely going to need to be made a co-host. So once Kathy, you're made a co-host, then you're going to definitely be able to see. So I would say, get on with your team, right, and do a mini run. Just each presenter would pull up the PowerPoint and see how you're going to run your meeting, because the way your class is may be different from is different from career coaching. So you're going to find out what the best and smooth way to run your class the way you need to. So I'm right now, I'm going to try to see if I can share this with you right now. So right now I've shared my screen, and Kathy, can you tell me right now, what do you see on the screen right now?
Career coaching, welcome to Saddleback Lake Forest Career Coaching. Okay,
great. Do you also see my participants window or the chat on the right-hand side?
Yes, yeah.
You do? Okay, fantastic. I'm going to see if I can, I'm gonna see if I can do some other, one more thing. Just bear with me for a second. I'm trying to see if I can bring up, oh, I'm not able to, okay. I'll do that same thing. Okay, I will do that. Okay, now also, Kathy, do you see at the bottom of my screen, do you see the navigation tool?
No.
Okay, you're not able to. Okay, that's good to know. So what I can do is, the closest I can do is basically show you what I'm looking at, right, as a host, co-host. My buttons look a little bit different from yours. I just pulled up my participant screen, right? And then my chat right now looks like this. So it may be a little bit different. I have a file that I can share here. So you'll see when you become a co-host or a host, your options in your screen will look a little bit differently.
Okay, so I'll just try to remember what you're saying, so when I get to the real thing, then I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, and we found that the best way to really practice is, the best way is to practice with your team at least a couple times minimum, to do a mini run through. That is actually the most helpful.
Okay.
And I'm gonna also, Max actually shared with you the document, right, of the things that we talked about, so that when you get on, it'll prompt your memory a little bit. So we've actually listed everything for the what Max shared with you. You can download using technology, the Zoom training document that we're using, and you would click on your chat button to download that document that Max shared. Okay, so the next thing that as a host you're able to do is do the polling, which Andrew did a sample of. He pulled it up prior to the meeting so that when your participants enter, they have something to look at, something to work with, and you can get immediate engagement with them by having a poll up on the screen ready to go when you admit them into the meeting. And I also did want to share with you this. The document that I shared earlier for the career coaching, which I shared again, this is what career coaching uses as a welcome page. And what's nice about this welcome page is that they have a QR code here. And I want you to, if you have your phone handy, I want you to open up your camera, your phone camera, and just not take a picture, but hover over the QR code. When you do that, there's going to be a little window that you open up, and you can see they're using the QR code to actually capture the participants' information, as well as which breakout room, which course they want to take. So this is a super useful tool, and this is simply a Google form that they attach to a QR code. And if you can open that up, you can see that they're asking some really relevant questions ahead of time, and therefore they're going to have their host start setting people into breakout rooms. So you can see this is an engagement piece, right? You have a welcome page, you have some, little bit of housekeeping rules, keep your microphone on mute, to ask a question, use the chat, etc. There's even the link for Monday nights, because their Monday night link, their meetings will be the same link. So they decided to just try that out to begin with. And then they also have provided their actual ministry page, saddleback.com/career-coaching, where a list of resources are available. And there's a lot of resources on their webpage. So you can see they've used this well. And so when they, as soon as the participants scan and answer the questions on the QR code, the system host, now you may want to have a role called systems host. And what they ended up doing with the systems host is they're in the background trying to get everybody, the 30, 50 people into breakout rooms, while they have a moderator as well as the presenters. So it's good to think of the roles that you need to get them trained up so that they can actually, the responsibilities are split up. Now, what happened here right now is I'm speaking right now, but I'm not able to keep track of the chat that's going on. And what's neat right now is if I stop and look at the chat, I can see that that Andrew said something to me, and Max said something to me, and then Jackie. And so, but as a presenter, I'm not able to, I'm sharing my screen and doing all these things, and I'm not able to necessarily look at the chat. So for career coaching, they are having someone who's an MC or the moderator, and whatever they see in chat, they will share with, they'll bring the attention to the presenter, and just, ask a question if it's needed. So it's good to have the MC keep track of what's going on in the chat. And so they would be the one, the host, systems host could be the one to field questions and different things that the participant would want to ask. And we found out that works really, really well. Now, going along the navigation bar, right now, I think either Andrew or Max is recording the session. So that's an option. If you want to record, you would enable that feature in the settings, and then at the beginning of the meeting, you would just start the record, and it'll save it. It's a pretty large file, but it's good that you can be able to save it, so that if you want to share it with your teams who weren't able to attend, it's just a great way to capture the training. Now, let's go ahead and talk about some of the views. If you look on your top right corner, right now, if I click on speaker view, I see one main person. And then if I click back, I'm going to see gallery view, which is then I can see everybody in the meeting. So we have 17 people. I can see everybody's screen is kind of like those old game show Hollywood squares, right? So I know I'm kind of like mentioning something that seems outdated, but it's like a Hollywood square. So what's nice is you can actually click on different views. So there's gallery view, there's speaker view, and then if you want to be able to see more of your screen, you can actually minimize it where only about 4 or 5 people are showing, and then you can see the view of if someone's sharing their screen, you can actually see that. And what's also great is you can move that around. Say if you want to go to the smaller view where you only see 4 people, you can click and drag that little window around. If you want to move it to the right, you want to move it to the top. And sometimes if your participants box, your participants window or your chat window, somehow when you open it up, it ends up in the middle of your screen, which has happened to me several times. You can also just, click on it and shift it over, hold down your mouse and just move it to the right, move it over so the screen is in full view, which is super helpful. Okay, so I want to kick it back to Max to see if he has any more settings that he wants to go over. I know I haven't gone over breakout rooms yet, but I'm gonna wait for a second. Max, did you have any other settings that you want to share about?
Okay. All right, sorry about that. I tried my space bar. For some reason, it wasn't working for me. It worked earlier. Anyway, yeah, so one of the things I just wanted to mention real quick, if you're planning to do a stream to Facebook or YouTube or something of that nature, you have to be mindful of the view that you're using. So I think if you're planning to do some sort of streaming, you may even want to give over the hosting rights to someone else that's going to monitor the visual experience for others. So what I'm talking about is one of the times when I did this, I had everything in the gallery view. So you really want to stream a speaker view if you're going to be doing streaming. So during the presentation, my wife was actually interviewing someone, and I was the host, and I was going in and out of gallery view and speaker view, and I ended up making the experience for those that were watching live on Facebook really terrible. So that'd be something to keep in mind if you're going to be using the streaming service where you're using Zoom to stream to either Facebook or YouTube. But Zoom has made that super easy to do. So that's really cool that you can utilize the Zoom meeting as a Facebook live video for a group, a page, or even on your own timeline. So what I used it for was we were streaming a interview between her and a foster parent, and we streamed it to our private Facebook group of just several dozen other people, so that it would not only archive it for later view for them there, it would also give them immediate access without having to get into Zoom and all that. So just something to keep in mind is being careful on who is actually the host, and because the host is going to be the person that the stream comes from. So Linda covered a little bit about host and co-host. So there's only one host in any meeting, and that host has powers that nobody else has, because setting up the breakout rooms has to be done by the host. If you had co-hosts trying to do it at the same time, Zoom wouldn't know where to put people, because one person's saying put them in this room, and then another co-host is putting them in another room. One thing that the co-host can do is jump around from room to room. So host and co-host have some pretty neat little abilities, and I'm sure Lynn will talk a little bit more about that when she goes over that. But I just really wanted to make sure that for those of you that are thinking about, I want to record or stream my meeting, doing so, you have to be conscientious of how you're viewing the experience, because it's going to take that and stream that. When you record the meeting, though, the neat thing that does happen is that Zoom is going to basically capture only a speaker view. So Zoom will allow you to capture your meeting in a cloud or locally. I think you have to have a paid account to get it to be captured in the cloud, but that's what we have, and I've been using that, and it's really cool because those recordings can be also edited from the place where it stores it. So later you can go back in and look at your recording and actually edit the recording, so you can chop off the beginning of the meeting that maybe was dull, or parts of the meeting that weren't that good. And it also captures the live chat. So as the meeting goes, the chat kind of scrolls with it. So it knows that the chat and the meeting are both kind of synced that way. So there is a way to share your meetings through Zoom publicly with people that missed your meeting. If you didn't want to, if people missed it, say, gosh, I missed that meeting, I wish I could have been there. This will give you an opportunity to share that meeting with them over the web hosted, recorded view. So, that was just a little tidbit that I wish I would have known, prior to hosting the thing. So I almost made the mistake yesterday. We had one of those meetings that we streamed live to Facebook, and I was catching myself like really interested in the speaker view. So what I ended up doing was having a separate on my iPad, the same meeting with a different user, so that I could kind of see who's in the meeting and what the reactions were and what have you. Because one of the neat things about Zoom, as opposed to just straight doing video trainings, is you get to see people's faces, and I did a parent training a couple weeks ago for one of our campuses, and they streamed it live to their Facebook. And I was just like hanging on. I could see 5 faces or 3 faces above the PowerPoint that I was presenting on, and it really helped me feel that little bit of human connection as I was presenting. Because when you're just talking straight into a video camera, it's really tough. And when you don't have those eyeballs to kind of feed off of, it can be tough. So like right now, I have Kathy Constance in one of my views, and she just nodded her head, and that's like, okay, I'm saying something that's good. Where another person like Lyle, who's yawning and falling asleep, I feel bad. So Zoom does make things a little more interactive than you're there. Thank you, Lyle. That helps. So anyway, so Zoom is neat that you can be a little bit more colloquial in your presentation and make it more of an interactive experience, so you don't have that pressure of feeling like this has to be polished. So Linda, are you ready to take back and go into some breakout stuff? Because I think we're getting almost out of time, and I think that's some really good stuff in there.
Great, Max. Some really great tips. And so right now I'm going to go ahead and move you into a breakout room. And so what happened was, I just want to give you a little background. Andrew was the host, and what I went in, and I don't know if Andrew, you noticed this, but I reclaimed the host superpowers so that I could have the breakout feature. And like Max mentioned, whoever is the host, that is who can actually open and launch the breakout room. So I went in while Max was talking, I reclaimed the host position from Andrew, and then I made him a co-host. And then so now, right now, I'm going to go ahead and just click on that. And so I know you're not able to see that, but when you are the host, which is that one person, you'll see the button. It's going to be very clear on your navigation bar, the breakout room. There's just one little button that says that. Or if it's not there, then you click on more. And when you click on more, you're going to see different options. So right now, when I click on breakout rooms, what I'm looking at is, it says automatically, it says assign 15 participants into 3 rooms. And then there's an area that says automatically or manually. So if you're doing a meeting where you're okay, say you're doing a prayer breakout, you don't mind, if the system chooses who goes into which room, then you would select automatically. Now for manually, for example, the career coaching, when they filled out their QR code, the host is in the background looking at all the names, seeing who selected which course, and she is doing the manual. But right now, for the sake of what we're doing, I'm going to leave it on automatically, and I'm going to go ahead and click on create breakout rooms. And so some of you you're going to see the screen, you're going to see people start disappearing, but they're still going to be there. They're just virtually disappeared. And you're going to go into the room, and therefore at that point, whoever is leading that room or presenting in that particular room, you're going to have roles such as the presenter or the lead person. And maybe you want to do an MC depending on the type of meeting. So I'm just going to test this out with you right now. I'm going to create those. You're going to jump over there. You know, if you want to just say hi, you know, just see how it looks like. And then you can actually come back. There's going to be a button for you where you can actually rejoin the main room. Okay, so let's go ahead and break out.
Hey,
Hey, it worked.
We're in.
Even looks like we didn't lose anybody so far. That's amazing. Normally they all run for the hills, right?
Right.
This is so cool.
So why don't we just a quick rejoin the main room. I wanted to actually talk with you guys, man.
No, what's
Okay.
going on, Linda? Slow down.
Oh, that's funny. All righty. I guess we're rejoining the main room, but thank you guys. Good to at least see your
Yeah.
faces, Sarah, Sharon,
Yes, it is.
Marcia.
You guys are the cool kids.
Oh, so we just hit lead breakout room?
If you want to abandon Max and me, that's
Oh
fine.
no, we could just stay here, I think.
I'd rather hang out.
What do you guys think, since we're in here, what do you guys think so far of the meeting? Like, we're definitely not the experts that you know, that are out there, but we're certainly doing our best to inform.
I'm really enjoying this. I'm interested in learning more about the live streaming a Zoom on Facebook, because that's pretty cool for a lot of the things that we're going to be doing at Trellis. So,
Uh-oh.
return to main session.
I think
She's
this
like,
is really
trying to
good.
put her foot down on us, huh?
Yeah. She gave us 45 seconds, so we're good.
You
Yeah,
guys, it's helping me a lot. It really is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you for doing this.
I think one of our hopes was not so much to, you know, be experts, but was to inspire and to just go like, hey, we're poking around, you know, and trying to play with this thing, and we're getting some pretty neat responses.
Yeah, it's coming across that way. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna go back over to Maine, see what's going on.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Okay, everyone's popping back in. All right, great. Looks like we got everybody.
I have a question about the breakout rooms.
Yes.
I put it on the chat, but I'll ask it. When you go to breakout rooms and you're the host, so for example, if we did this with all of our teams that we were training, can we as leaders, can you as host or co-host go and visit those various rooms?
You're full of good questions today, Alice. Thank you for asking that question. So if you have co-host designation, then, and you're placed into a breakout room, as soon as you, as a co-host, you go into a breakout room, then what you're going to end up seeing is you're actually able to click on the breakout feature. So in other words, yes, the host is the one to place everybody into the breakout room. But as soon as a co-host goes into a breakout room, the breakout feature button will show up for them. So they're able to jump. They're able to jump, yes, and move, possibly move people around. I actually haven't had the chance to be a co-host and move into, I mean, I was a co-host and I was moved into a breakout room, and all of a sudden the breakout button.
That's really not my question. I'm
Okay,
sorry,
yeah.
I didn't frame it well. So, you know, Dan and I lead the ministry, and then we've got people like Steve and Kathy who are on right now, and, you know, all the other leaders of a team. So if we did breakout rooms, each room would be by a team, so Dilcon, Sonosti, whatever. But can Dan and I then go from one to the next and see what they're talking about, or are we
Okay.
locked out?
Yes, only the host. The host can jump from room to room.
Okay,
Room.
so we could go travel around and see what they're doing.
The host superpower, you can hover over their name and make them the host. But as long as they're willing to remember, hey, I need the host superpower back. So you can actually pass the host position back and forth. Like with Andrew, he was the host originally, right? And I was a co-host. And what I ended up doing when Max was talking, I reclaimed the host position and I made him a co-host so I could open up the breakout rooms. And now if I wanted to, I can make him the host back, okay? So yes, as a host, you can jump into any room that you would like, and that you can also switch the host position superpower over to somebody else so they can jump into a room as well, okay? Wonderful question, excellent.
Linda,
Before you go off that,
I'd like to ask that question again about the person who's on our screen that says iPhone. I'm having a seminar tonight, so if I get somebody and I don't see their name, how do I get them to put a name on there?
Great. You know, if you have a systems host or an MC, you can type them a private message and ask them to rename themselves. So that is a feature that's a possibility. You would ask them to hover over their name, and you can rename. So why don't you do that? Why don't you hover over your own name and see right now if that feature has been enabled. And if you're able to rename yourself, just give me a thumbs up. Okay, no, I see Lisa's quick to respond. She says no. Okay, so right now, what I'm going to do is, let's take a look. Right now, what's interesting is when I'm looking at my participant screen, and you know what is actually checked off? To allow, it says allow participants to rename themselves. So we actually have that selected as a yes, but you're not able to rename yourself. No? Anybody able to rename themselves when they hover over their name? Okay, Jamie is? Okay, great. So some of you may have 3 dots instead of more. Okay, anybody else able to rename themselves? Yes? Okay. So it looks like several of you are. So everybody should, because what we have as a setting right now, under setting, when I hover over more, it says allow participants to rename themselves. So Ernie, great question. This happened last Monday at our career coaching meeting. We were trying to put people in breakout rooms, and somebody had, they named themselves Pixel 2. And so in order to know who that was, to set them into a breakout room, we sent them a private message, and we were able to figure out that who they were so we can place them. So you can, I would definitely recommend having an MC or systems co-host to be able to connect with those people privately, to ask them to either rename themselves or ask them their name so that you can rename, because as a host, I'm able to rename people as well, okay? So wonderful question. And then Andrew made a comment, he actually said hosts are able to rename. Yes, great, thank you, Andrew. Okay, so right now, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the, I want to talk about a little more about roles, because this is going to be really key for a smooth meeting. And right now, I'm going to talk specifically about class 401, which is our missions class. And Brittany leads the team, Lisa, and we have several, let me see who else, Kathy's on there for the team, some of our teachers. And so I'm going to talk a little bit. Thank you, Brittany. I see the hand clap. Thank you. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, maybe how to set your meeting up for a smooth presentation, because this is going to be really crucial, especially the first 2 or 3 times that you're hosting your meeting, right? So here are some of the roles that we developed for career coaching. First of all, I know that when Andrew came on, Andrew was the host, and he welcomed everybody. He, made a few comments. He opened in prayer. Now, what's a little bit different is for career coaching, we would call that the MC, because for career coaching, the person that was host is busy taking all the data that they receive from the QR code, the Google form, and that host has the power to set up breakout rooms. So we decided that we actually need the host to be a systems host in the background, running the background, and we need an MC or moderator to welcome and pray and do those different things. So just think about your type of meeting. Maybe you need a systems host, maybe you need an MC, and then maybe you need a presenter. And what the team did recently is they held 2 trainings. Like, here's what the presenter does. Here's what the system host does. Here's what the co-host systems does. Because we found out also is it was too much to put everybody in breakout rooms and trying to also private message some of the people that needed to change their names. So we ended up calling a systems host and a systems co-host, and then an MC, and then a presenter. So it became a little bit more involved, but it worked out really, really well. And so before you host your meeting, you would get together with your team. You would, delineate these responsibilities, train them up, figure out who's doing what so they don't have to do the same thing, figure out who's going to lock the meeting, who's going to actually remove anybody who might be disruptive, and who's going to welcome in prayer, who's going to do the devotional, and so forth. And also, because of Class 401 is doing their first Zoom online meeting, what they can think about, something to think about is one person going to control the screen? In other words, as the class teacher is presenting, do you want one person to control the screen and flip through the PowerPoint? Or do you want the different teachers to just have it ready and pull up their part when they're ready to speak? And so that's something to think about, because it's very easy for the co-host to take over the screen. I'm going to give an example. Right now, let me see if I can just call on Kathy. Let me see if who else? Let me take a look at if we have. Brittany, who on your team is labeled right now a co-host? Is there somebody on your team labeled co-host right now? No. Okay.
Sarah.
Okay,
Sarah's
great.
a co-host.
Okay, great. Sarah, on the bottom of your navigation bar, do you have share screen available? Let me see.
I can't see that. Hold on.
Okay.
No, I can't see that share screen.
Okay. How about more? When you click on your more button on your navigation bar, can you see share screen?
No.
Okay, so that means the settings probably are not quite set for co-host to share, because the other day I was on a call and I was a co-host and somebody else was a host, and I was able to click on my share screen button and share. So just this is a good thing that happened, because it's good to set your settings to how you want them so that the host and co-host can share their screen. So at that point, the host was sharing their screen. I was able to kick them off because we were testing this feature out. I clicked on share screen and it asked me a question. Do you want to share your screen and remove the other person? And I did, and we were able to do that. So right now, the settings just must not be set for that, to have the co-host share their screen. So that is something to check out in settings for sure, just to make sure you test that out. If you want different teachers to share their screen, have that set before you launch your meeting. Okay, so just consider again, moderator responsibilities or MC responsibilities, as well as systems host or systems co-host, what the presenter can do and who is doing what. And for example, who's going to share a poll if you want to do a poll? Who's going to share a welcome page with a QR code if you want to do that? Who's going to actually, so you map out your meeting, kind of like agenda and who does what, so that your meeting is really, works really smoothly. And a couple of other presentation tips is that, when I'm talking, I tend to want to look at your faces. So I'm looking down because my camera's straight ahead. However, right now I switched. I just switched and I'm staring at my green little light and I'm talking to that little camera right now. So sometimes if you just really want to engage your participants a little bit more, you can try to look at the camera straight ahead versus looking at the Hollywood squares that you see, looking at the actual little screens of your participants. So it just helps with participation and engagement when you really do look at the camera and speak directly to them, because that's what they see. They'll see your eyes straight ahead rather than down. And then the lighting, take a look at everybody's lighting. So you want to do the lighting not behind you, right? So it doesn't create like a angel glow, behind you, but you want to have the lighting in front of you. You want to be able to close your doors, and you want to have your presenters close all the doors to make sure to reduce sound. You just think about basically the best practices of lighting and sound, and prepare the team that way. And so we're about to close out here. Does anybody have any questions they want to, any more questions they have, comments?
I have a question. Actually, just now when you looked at your camera, your eyes looked up away from us. It looks like you're looking at me right now when you just look at the screen, or it looks like you're looking down a little bit right now. But when you were looking at the whole screen, it looked far more personal.
That is so good, Kathy. And you know why? Because where I'm at, my desk is raised up. It's already raised up. So therefore, some of the desks are lower, right? So this is such a great thing to talk about, because right now, if you look at some of the participants, right, they're looking more down, right? So when you practice, you're going to give them feedback on how they look, right? Because usually, yeah, I would say that your desk, sometimes you have to actually raise up your computer with books. I've done that before, right? So that you're talking straight on. And I didn't even think about this desk that I'm on right now is actually higher than my usual. So that's good to know, okay? So just great feedback. I think it'll just help improve even more. And so, let me see here. Okay, any other questions?
Are you able to lighten up people's screens? Is there any control for that besides what's in their own room?
Okay, what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna push lighten my screen. Now, does that do anything on your end? Okay, I've moved it way up and it changed my screen, but it didn't change yours, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so Steve, I think that you probably want to play around with your lighting so there's no shadows in the background. You're going to probably might have to bring an extra lamp in if it's dark, because you might hold a night, an evening meeting. So you might have to really just get a lamp. And the best thing is not really to have a bright light behind you, right? Not to do the bright light behind you, but to put the light more in front so it's coming forward instead of in the back. Does that make sense? Hopefully
Yes.
that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay.
Linda, a friend of mine put me on to a product called Neewer Light, Neewerlight. It's on Amazon for $80. It's a circular light, like a circle, and it has in the middle where you can put your iPhone or whatever, and you can put that on your desk in front of you. So it's sort of almost like a makeup light, but it's a big circle. So for $80, if we're going to be doing these regularly, that might be a good investment to have.
Thank you, Ernie. Do you mind typing that in chat for everybody could see it? You can select everyone and send it to everybody. That would be helpful. That is helpful. So we're about to close out now. I just want to give a couple more tips or what the feature would be to be able to share or save your chat. So in other words, you might right now see a button on your bottom right part of your chat where it says Save Chat. Go ahead and select that, okay? Save Chat. And therefore, when you do that, when you log out, your computer is going to actually have that saved for you. So just test that out. And if anybody shares any resources, or you want to just remember something that was asked to follow up, then you can save your chat and get back to them. Okay. So that's great, Ernie. Thank you for sharing that. Newer Light, available on Amazon. Okay, wonderful. And so.
Yep, yeah, and it's not misspelled. There's 2 E's.
Okay.
So that's the product. So you put that in the search bar and it'll pop up.
Great.
It's on a tripod and everything, comes on a nice little travel pack. So it's a really good deal.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Ernie. Some good resource for presentations. Okay, does anyone have any last question before we close out in prayer? Okay, why don't we go ahead and close in prayer. Heavenly Father, we know that you are doing amazing things across the earth through COVID-19, and we thank you for all of our ministry leaders that are just so willing to learn new things and to try new things and to see how else they can continue to reach out to those that you've just divinely appointed them to reach out. So God, I ask that as they use these new tools, Zoom or whatever else it would be, that you would just fill them with your wisdom and your guidance as they prepare to take some of their ministry work online. Lord, that you would just provide all that they need, and the team prepared and ready. And Lord, we pray also for protection over them and their families, because we know in this season you are doing so many things that may be different and new. So we pray for protection and just a new grace, God, for this season. We thank you for each one been so faithfully serving you. And we thank you that we could just get together and connect and just share, God, what we've been learning, what you've been teaching us. So we thank you for this time together. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Great to see everybody. Glad you can join, and feel free to reach out to us. We are so willing to support. If you want to do a practice run, and you want further support, let us know. And just look forward to seeing how God uses this tool. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, Linda.